Hello again. So today I thought I will go back to a little bit of different subject than medical talks that I've done for last few times. And I thought I'll talk about happiness, pleasure, or bliss. As you know, we have been talking about happiness and its source and where do we experience happiness. Please also note that if you remember the 5 sheaths that we had, covering of the body, where the innermost was bliss sheath. So I thought today I will talk about bliss. We have talked about this in the past as to the source of happiness. If you ask a kid who loves candy or ice cream and say, what gives you happiness? He doesn't know that it gives him in the mind, but he thinks it is related to external source, ice cream, candy, cake, or anything else. Even in adults, somebody may say drugs, alcohol. So we always point to an outside source for the happiness. The happiness certainly occurs in the mind, because when we talk about the 5 senses, when they meet with a subject or vishaya, V-I-S-H-A-Y, there is either a happiness or pleasure or displeasure. So whenever there is a happiness, we attribute it to external source, when in reality it is happening in the mind. So for me seeing something, smelling something, touching something, tasting something, or hearing something, these things cause contact with external source and happiness. And we falsely believe it is happening because of external source. But to take an example, there may be people who do not like ice cream. So for them, eating ice cream does not give them pleasure. The usual example that I've used is if somebody is vegetarian, steak does not give him pleasure. For those who are meat eaters or meat or steak and potato people, eating steak gives them pleasure. So it is falsely concluded that the pleasure is in eating steak. But if I would continue to eat steak one after another and I'm stuffed with it, eating more steak is not going to give me happiness. Same holds true about eating pizza or, for that matter, anything else. If hearing a music gives you a pleasure and you think that music is the source, then rock or opera or rap or any music should give pleasure to everybody. But not everybody loves opera. Not everybody loves classical music. So the music is a source of pleasure, but it certainly is felt in the mind. So the enjoyment, the pleasure, the happiness, or if you want to call it bliss, is happening in the mind. Again, mind can be also part of mind, chit, and intellect. The whole thing is together, and that's where the pleasure or happiness or bliss is happening. But we falsely attribute it to the external source, and that's why it's called Vishayananda, a pleasure which is related to external source. Thinking about eating ice cream would not give me pleasure, but eating ice cream certainly would. So there is still a contact with external source which is needed. That's why it is called Vishayananda. But then there are other people who do meditation, who do chanting, who like to pray with the prayers to the Lord. Here, there is really no external source as such. Though when you chant or do in Indian language called bhajan, Bhajan, which is basically a chanting with music, it gives you a pleasure, it gives you a happiness. If you achieve certain levels of meditation, then also you will have perception of some happiness. And of course, if you go to the highest level of samadhi or meditation, you will have extremely high pleasure. This pleasure is also happening in the mind. So when I sit in a group of people and I'm chanting with drums and harmonium or anything else, and you get into a certain level of trance, we achieve a pleasure, and that pleasure is related to us trying to be one with the ultimate being, or the God, or Brahman, or whatever you want to call him by any other name. This particular type of thing is not 100% related to our sense organ. You could not say that when I do meditate, I'm seeing something. You could not say if I'm meditating, I'm hearing something. That gives me pleasure. I'm not testing anything, not smelling anything, but it still gives me pleasure. Certainly if you are doing loudly the chanting, which is an Indian tradition, is called bhajan, then certainly there is a bhajan element, which is we are hearing it. But it still happens in the mind, and it does not necessarily need external source. Me meditating through my mind, intellect, ego, and chit, giving me pleasure is not external, but it's internal. But it is still happening in mind. So that is called bhajanananda. The pleasure, the happiness, the bliss that is happening related to us trying to be one with the Lord. So there is a Vishayananda, where the source of happiness apparently, though falsely, is an external, but we still need the external source. The happiness is happening in the mind. Then there is a Bhajanananda, which happens when we meditate or chant, and that is also happening in mind, but the external source is not as prominent, as needed as in the first case, which is Vishayananda. The last one is called Brahmananda. Brahmananda is the ultimate bliss, pleasure, happiness that occurs when we realize that we are nothing but all-pervading consciousness. The happiness that is happening with Vishayananda or even Bhajanananda is a borrowed happiness from the consciousness, which is nothing but bliss. So the bliss happening when we are ultimately one with the Lord is called Brahmananda. And that has no source outside our body, nor it is related to the Prakriti or nature. Mind you, the mind, intellect, chit, ego, and all the physical body, the astral body, and even the causal body are part of Prakriti or nature, not part of spirit. So the bliss that occurs because of we are one with the spirit, we are one with the ultimate being, ultimate, all-pervading, omnipresent, everywhere consciousness is unrelated to mind, intellect, ego, chit, or physical body. And it happens at much different level. The happiness in the Vishayananda and happiness in the Bhajanananda is borrowed from that ultimate bliss. So the bliss that occurs for being one with the ultimate consciousness is called Brahmananda, and that should be the goal of everyone who wants to be one with the Lord. I hope you like this. If you like, please subscribe. Thank you. Have a nice day.